again, we're not here to make life hard for our patients. I just have a business to run, and I want my team to be happy and not sitting behind a desk trying to call insurance companies all day, right?
Exactly.
So if we can make that exception, yes, we're reasonable in this approach. So we're like hardcore, this is what we're doing, and then we backed off. And how many months did it take us to kind of like learn that lesson?
I'd say it was a good solid 6 months before we learned that lesson.
Welcome to the Truth About Dentistry podcast. I am Dr. Peggy Bound, a successful solo dental practice owner in St. John, New Brunswick. After years of figuring out how I wanted to practice, I now run a fully digital clinic providing my own brand of dentistry on my own terms. It wasn't easy, and I'm still learning, but I know I have so much knowledge to share. This podcast is created to help inspire young dentists or anyone looking to transition to a more digital practice. I aim to give you actionable step-by-step strategies to help you navigate the modern dentistry landscape. If you're looking to become more digital, improve your skills, or even have a more profitable practice, then this podcast is for you. Now let's get started. Hello, everyone. It's so nice to be here. I'm especially excited today because I have Quincy Hall.
Hi, everyone.
Oh my gosh, there's so many hats that Quincy wears, but you have the official title as Systems and Operations Strategist, also known as Agent 99. So Q99 is sometimes what we call her, all kinds of things. And mostly we just call her a lot. We're like, Quincy, come help. So thank you, Quincy, for being here.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, so it's nice to have you here, especially, usually you're on the other side of the camera. She is, by the way. She's always here. But usually we are talking about, of course, just specific things, that I like my own personal experiences and things that I'm doing in the clinic. But what I thought would be really helpful today is if you and I talk about what we've been through in the last year, specifically related to being able to transition our practice into a fee-for-service practice, getting out of the insurance game, if you will. So going what we call non-assignment here in Canada, and maybe in the US it's fee-for-service. So
yeah, we just completed our first full year doing non-assignment. So pretty crazy, actually, thinking how far we've come.
Yeah. So when I first proposed this to my team back in the fall of 2021, I actually thought it was going to get a lot of resistance, but we had been just struggling a little bit more since COVID, right, Quincy? Like there's been a lot more resistance and difficulty with the insurance companies paying, and along with, of course, just it's always been a difficult game. It's always been chasing our tails, chasing after, spending time on the phone, trying to contact insurance companies, trying to figure out the best estimation of benefits, and then having to collect money later, send out, Send out, invoices or statements, and really just never feeling ahead. And just the other thing I think I really wanted to do at Quincy is partly because I saw you, because you were involved with that, and I saw you like really hate that part of your job.
So hated it.
And I never want my team to hate their job, any aspect of it. I mean, it's okay, you can dislike something, or you can like something a little bit more than something else, but I just felt like it was a slog, and it was like no one really wanted to do it. And so when I spoke to another dentist group in Nova Scotia, of course, we're here in New Brunswick, and here in Canada, in this part of Canada, it's very unusual. It's very rare that you'll find a general dentist that's gone fee for service. We have mostly our specialists practices that do that, and seems to be accepted, right? Like, oh, going to the specialist, I guess I'll have to pay up front and seek reimbursement. But when it comes to general dentistry, it's like it was this big hurdle. So I was a little afraid that my team would be, oh my God, Peggy, how are we going to do that? I don't know how to do that. We don't know how to say that. We're going to get all this kickback. We're going to lose patients, and so I spoke with, I got the idea because some students that were in our first program, our first modern dentist program back in 2021, they had said that they had gone fee for service and they were having really very few hiccups. And I thought, okay, if they can do it and they're like our sister province, then I'm sure we can do this. And so you want to speak about like when I first told you about that, what your thoughts were?
I think it was just excitement, genuinely. And I think for a lot of the team, it was excitement. There was a little bit like, oh my gosh, like, will this work in St. John, New Brunswick? Because it's a more, there's less money in this city than other cities.
Yeah.
And so it can definitely be a hurdle. But I think because you had this other dental office that was doing so well with it, it really gave us like the trust and the courage that it would work out, and we might lose some people, but we might actually lose people in a good way. If that makes sense.
We might be weeding our garden, or we might find that we lose the people that really, if they really value our services and they're going to receive the money back anyway. Yes, it might be a 1 or 2 day or week delay, something like that. But if they truly value us, then they're going to stay with us. And so it was a little bit of a hard pill to swallow, because right now we're going to go through some of the things that I call it the successes and stresses of going on assignment. And, you know, it has been days where I'm like, oh, did we make the right decision? But for the most part, would you say, Quincy, it's been like, yes, we made the right decision?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Because no one likes to feel rejection, right? Like, rejection is hard. And when we have a patient call up and say, look, I want my records transferred, and they've been a patient a long time, and it's really no other reason because they just don't like this billing policy, then it's really hurt me, I think, personally, perhaps more than anybody. But because I really have close relationships and bonds with my patients. But yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that, how we started. And it was even right before, it was in December of 2020.
Yeah, December 1st, we decided would be our date. And we kind of talked to a couple of people to try and figure out how to go about it. Because yes, we had those dentists, but we wanted to know more of like how do you start telling your patients about this? And they really recommended that you pick a date a couple months out and start letting your patients know ahead of time, so that you're not just one day, they come through the door and they have to pay for things up front. So that was a big part of it, preparing patients. And it kind of had to start with a mass email is how it started. Let's send out an email to every single one of our patients that we have an email for, and just see what the response is like. And that was probably the hardest part of the whole endeavor, for me personally, at least.
Yeah.
Because it is the time where you're going to get the people who are probably the most outraged be behind a computer screen.
They can be in the comfort of their own home.
And really let you have it. And we didn't get a lot of that. I will say we didn't get a lot. But the few that did, they really went for it. So
they went for it.
They did.
And we've had a few really argued, saying that we were being, I don't know, unethical, or we didn't.
Yes.
There's just a very few, guys. Like, out of the thousands, right, of patients, imagine there's just a very few. But it's just interesting to see how people can get so upset about something like this type of thing. And yet they can go to their chiropractor, or they can go to the specialist, or they can go wherever, and they can go to a store and buy, a couch or a car or whatever. And they'll pay up front. They don't leave without paying. But yet when it comes to dentistry, it's like the industry has allowed this to be the case, and it's just really, to me, gone on too long. And I really had other dentists reach out to me once in the local area when they started, I think, to receive some of my patients. They're like, oh my gosh, you went on assignment? Like, how did you do that? Like, tell us what you did, right? So we thought we would now, since it's been a year, really have enough experience under our belt to really share with you some of the things that we did do. And like I said, the first thing was sort of a soft launch of it, and not feel too bad about telling you, I think this really is a good thing. And honestly, if all dentists, general dentists especially, did this, we'd all be in a better situation. So just sort of doing this from the aspect of like trying to help the industry and help ourselves. We're all business owners, and we're headed into times where it really is going to be a little more challenging into this recession probably that's happening. So I think we do need to, and we can use, I think one of the things I did is I used COVID as the excuse.
Yes.
Right? So that was the next thing.
That was the main way we came back. So after we sent the first email, we realized very quickly that we really needed to have a united front on how we're answering these questions.
Yes.
So everyone on the team had to know the exact same responses for every type of situation.
Right. Because they were going to get questioned, like the hygienist was going to get questioned.
Oh, yeah.
As well.
It definitely happened. They got into the chair. They didn't say a word until they were in. And then Stefan typically was the one who had to field those. So we definitely had to all make sure we were on the same page. And COVID was definitely our main excuse. Like, listen, since COVID, there's less, the insurance companies have less employees in the office, which means things are getting turned around more slowly. And not only that, but the biggest frustration was almost when things didn't go right. So when we didn't get the claim go through, trying to get someone on the phone to explain it, and then waiting more time for then it to come in, and then going to reach out to the patient. So it really was the biggest reason for the change, but not long term. Long term, it's just better for the business.
Yeah, it's better for the business. You really know where you stand. The money, when you do the service, the money comes in. I mean, for the most part, except for, right, we have made an exception for our orthodontics. So ortho in this practice makes up about 25 to 30% of my practice. So that's a pretty big chunk. So that is the one situation exception where I do accept, like, a payment plan or direct billing to the insurance.
And the way I explain that to a patient too, because someone will come in and we'll tell them we don't direct bill to insurance, but then they come for Invisalign and say, okay, well, we will direct bill that. I explain it in the way that it's just too hard for our patients to do, because it's a lot more,
such a big amount.
There's more like tunnels and kind of hard things to figure out, and you have to bill monthly. So we wanted to make it easy for our patients to direct bill, but that's a situation that's harder, and we don't want to pass that on to our patients. So it comes off as we are doing it because we know this step is just too hard. The rest of it is a simple thing to do. So therefore, in their head, it's like, oh, this is easy. That's why they've given this responsibility to me. And this is hard, which is why they're still doing it.
Amazing. Okay. Yeah. See, these are the little nuances that I needed you on here because I knew I didn't know. Okay.
Do you want to become the modern dentist in your area? Our on-demand and live mentorship will help you stand out, attract your ideal patients, and build a niche-based practice. This A to Z training is for dentists and team who desire the digital workflows and skills to operate a thriving digital practice, helping you stand out in a crowded market. This course is the culmination of Dr. Bound's 20-plus years of experience in building a patient experience that patients will pay more for. Learn from our on-demand courses or receive a more customized experience with our mentorship program as we guide you through the curriculum. You can find out more from the link in the show notes. Or, if you aren't quite ready to take the plunge, you can also find the link to our freebie consult photography guide, which will help you get the right shot on the first attempt. Now back to the episode.
And so we began that in December of 2021 and then headed into the new year. One thing I did do that I think was a little bit of a mistake, if I will admit.
Oh, yeah. I can say we probably made a couple mistakes.
One thing is that in January of 2022, I also decided to rename the practice to Lux Dental Aesthetics. Now, that also drove the message that we don't do general dentistry and we're changing and we're just high end and yada, yada. So I believe we probably lost a little more patients than we probably would have with the direct billing, partly because of the misconception. I was not good at really communicating. I was really excited to announce I had renamed the practice. I wasn't great at communicating exactly what was still going to be the same. And not that I didn't say it, but you have to say things multiple times. And so I believe we lost more patients through this new direct billing process than my friends in Nova Scotia. And they said that they didn't lose like that many patients. They said like it was very few. I believe it was partly for me because of the changing of my name. So if I have to be, I want to be honest. I want to be transparent. We did lose, I'd say, I'm going to guess a couple hundred.
Probably.
At least.
Yeah, probably a couple hundred.
I think that's safe. Now, again, there's well over 2,000, probably anywhere between 2,100 and 2,500 patients in the practice. So to lose 200 felt like a lot because, of course, it was sort of like they were almost all at once. So a lot of the other dentists in the community were like, oh, my God, we're getting Peggy's patients. Like, what's she doing? We definitely saw some slips go out to say like, oh, we're taking on your patient, and that hurt. So you have to be ready for that. You have to be okay with that, but also don't change the name of your practice if you're going to do this.
Well, I think the other big mistake we probably made too is just going a bit too hard on this change too quickly.
We did? Okay.
So yes, we had to pick a date. Like, this was the day we were going to start doing it. But I think what we didn't think about at the time was the fact that some people still had treatment that was treatment plan from before, and so it was stuff that they assumed that they would be getting covered.
I see, yeah.
And we made exceptions here and there, but I feel like right now we're at a place where we're a bit more lenient in general. Like, oh, you can't afford it, then the first thing we go to is, well, we will direct bill for you for this time.
Right. So we've basically put some pads in there, some padding, to make it better, because we know, and again, we're not here to make life hard for our patients. I just have a business to run, and I want my team to be happy and not sitting behind a desk trying to call insurance companies all day, right?
Exactly.
So if we can make that exception, yes, we're reasonable in this approach. So we're like hardcore, this is what we're doing, and then we backed off. And how many months did it take us to kind of like learn that lesson?
I'd say it was a good solid 6 months before we learned that lesson. But I think in a sense it was almost necessary, because it was like we had announced this big change. We had to be really solid and like believe in it.
We're like, it's going to work. Keep going, guys.
Keep going. Yeah. But it was about 6 months in, we were like, okay, but it doesn't feel good to not let this person who needs our help do this. So then we realized, okay, let's make decisions that make us feel good. So if someone needs work and they cannot afford it financially on their own, it makes us feel good to direct bill for that case.
Okay.
So that's kind of how I go now going forward. If I can tell someone's like, that's going to be too much, I will just offer it, because the amount of times that happens versus not happening is so low in comparison. So yes, we still have some direct billing that happens, but it's not like...
It's very little.
It's very little, yeah.
Okay, so I want to use an example. One of the students that we mentor in our Modern Dentist Mentorship program, I was on a call with her last week, and she said, Peggy, I was in the middle of now her receptionist quit like that day, so she had a little bit of a situation, but she was in the middle of a veneer case, and so her hygienist was asked to let the patient out. So the patient who said when they were leaving, I didn't know about this billing policy. So she's in the US, and she did not know. She's a new patient. She said, I was not told about the direct billing.
Awful.
She was very upset. So she could, in the middle of delivering a veneer case, very challenging case, she could hear the patient being very upset, and she couldn't leave the room. She couldn't leave her existing patient. So now she was trying to like, I'm going to call these patients back. Like, what do I have to do? So sort of damage control. That could have been avoided, right? It could have been avoided if the team knows that they can be lenient in some situations. And I think that was what the message was there, was like, look, she could have been a little more lenient, and then that might never have gotten to that point.
Yeah, I think it was really important for her to recognize that she needed to give that opportunity to her hygienist. She probably said, we're fee for service, so this is what happens. And the hygienist, they don't have the autonomy to just make that decision on the spot.
No, exactly.
So I think in that situation, there shouldn't have even been an argument, especially since they were a new patient, if it was someone who should know, who's been there multiple times.
Right, but this was a new patient.
This was a new patient, so it should never have escalated to a point of argument or contention. What I do, if it does happen to slip through the cracks, which it does, because maybe your conversation took a left turn when you were talking to them.
We do try to tell them when they're becoming a new patient, right?
Yes. Oh, we absolutely 100% of the time try and do that. I would say 98% of the time it happens. Yeah. Just because of how your conversation goes, you get caught up, you're busy, and maybe it doesn't get said. So I'll recognize it by the time I get off the call, and I'll make a little note. Was not made aware of whatever. Yeah. And I can either call them or I'll let it happen. And it depends on the situation. Sure. I can talk about that as well. But yes, so if they get into the clinic and they have not been told, and they come to the desk and say, oh, I didn't know this, or I wasn't aware, I immediately switch gears and say, that is totally fine, and we will direct bill for you this time. However, I want you to know going forward that we will not be direct billing for you. So that way, that little panic that clearly arrives in that person, they can like let it go. And so now you've done something for them. You're like, okay, well, this isn't what we normally do, but
don't worry.
We're going to cover it for you. And that makes them feel a lot more better. And then you've done something, so you have still that goodwill that you can get with them.
Yes.
And maybe it won't work out. Maybe it's not something that they can do.
Yeah, and you're be okay with. You're not creating a bomb at the desk in front of other people. because her husband later called back, and then he was upset, and he called and canceled his appointments for next week.
Yeah.
So that's just like so avoidable. Also, one thing I was going to say, if you could share with us, what do you say to patients, you know, to make them understand that it is going to be easy? Like, do you say something about like how long it typically takes your patients to get that money, and typically like what kind of apps are involved? Do you help them upload the app at that point, or how do you manage that?
So on the phone, when people ask, I don't go too far in. I normally like to ask what company they have, because in Canada, we don't have a crazy amount of insurance companies to go through. So I typically do know, based on conversations I've had with patients who are doing it, how long it's going to take or what the process is like. And that way I can give them a little bit of true insight into what they're going to experience, which is nice. But then I also say, like, listen, you can come in and we can do it together if you need help. We're always going to be here to help support you. Because our goal isn't to make things harder on the patient. Our goal is to make sure it's easy for them to do on their own.
And we tell them that our, 90% or 95%, whatever percentage you say, of our patients actually find it quite easy, and they get their money within, do you say a certain number of days? Or
I typically say 5 to 7 business days.
Okay.
Some are faster.
It can be one day, though.
Well, yeah, it absolutely can. However, more often than not, it isn't one day.
So it's even slower, because years ago it used to be one day.
I find it's typically 2 to 4 business days, but I don't want someone to get the impression that it will be 2 to 4 business days and then be very upset when it's not.
Yeah.
So if you say 5 to 7 and they get it back in 3, they're going to be really happy.
Yeah.
So that's what I normally do in that situation. There's some companies that are more difficult than others, and it's unfortunate when you have them.
Are we going to call them out, Quincy?
I mean, we can. Canada Life. The worst.
Who are your worst insurance companies?
But for the most part, they're pretty good now. So in general, you can put them on electronically, and you can get them directly back to your bank account. And it's pretty simple, and I let patients know that. And then we do at the desk, if someone really needs help, we'd go through it with them.
Okay. All right. So mostly it can be handled through their phones, and everybody now does have a phone. Again, you think about this, the timing of this in the way the world is. 10 years ago, this would have been much harder, because it could not have been done through apps on phones, right? So I feel so lucky that, yes, this is something I wanted for my business. It was right for my business at this time. COVID pushed everybody over the edge, including the insurance companies. And now the technology is there through the phone that we can actually utilize it. So I'm that's not lost on me. I think, there's a few things here that have been very lucky, and that we're at this time where we can do this. So our patients are quite familiar with phones, and that's why they're also good with other things that we do here, like dental monitoring and other apps that we have.
I definitely feel like we attract a technology-based audience because of how we find people online. They're already using a phone typically. We do have some older patients who have been with you for a very long time. Those would probably be our exceptions to direct billing. Older people who might be on a fixed income and don't, use technology and would have to mail it in, and that takes a lot of extra time if you're mailing it. So I find our exceptions are typically much older patients, or people who we know have a lower income and have expressed that to us, that it would just be impossible to try and do on their own.
Yeah, they don't even have that there to pay up front to get reimbursed. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, and we're sympathetic to that.
Yeah, and what we do in that situation, so we still said, listen, we're not direct billing anymore. They would come in, or they would talk to us on the phone, or they would send us a thing saying they were going somewhere else. And instead of just accepting that, they're going somewhere else, we would pick up the phone and call them and say, hi, I just want to let you know that we saw these things come through. We just wanted to talk to you and see what's going on.
Yeah, we've done that with a few patients.
Yeah, and typically it was the direct billing that was causing it.
Break my heart.
I know. So what we'll say is well, listen, I totally understand your situation. Let's keep this between us, but we will continue to direct bill for your family. So it has to be
one
secret.
way to throw a rope to try to keep, but only the ones that I really, really want.
Really love. Yeah, we're not going to hold on to someone who you wish had left anyway.
Yeah. So this is run by me. These people are run by me for sure.
Exactly.
Okay. No, I think that's good. I think we covered everything. if anyone has any questions about this, I mean, of course, we're still going through this process as well, and you probably are going to bring up something really great that we can add on to another episode, or you can just ask us, through our email or through Instagram. So thank you, Quincy. It's been really great.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
I think it's just really fun to be able to say I've been on assignment for a year, and I was like, I need to really share this with my listeners, because it's something that if you're not, if you are, with insurance-based business, you are having some of these things that do kind of frustrate you from time to time. Sometimes you can have a very successful practice, and of course lots of people do, and I did for years, but I really saw my team getting drained by it, and I just couldn't have that. So it was more about like protecting my team, knowing though that at the end of the day that my accounts would be much better, but that wasn't even the main thing. It was just like seeing Quincy sit at a desk very unhappy. I couldn't handle it.
And I think that's would be my main takeaway if you're a dentist who's considering it, is talking to your admin team and seeing what is it a drain on their daily
Maybe it's not.
day?
Like maybe
someone
the
loves
person
it
at the office loves it, and it means that your patients, you're not going to lose any patients. Like, you have to be okay with losing some patients. Mm-hmm. And so one thing though that we did see is that we are getting all the new patients that are coming are getting told, like I say, 98% of them are getting told that, look, we bill directly. And so they're coming in the door and they're educated on that. They're expecting that. There's no problems at the desk because they were told. Again, a very few cases where they wouldn't remember. But what it's doing is it's cultivating a clinic or a practice that is truly with patients that want to be here and are willing to pay up front for the service. And so I think those are very valuable types of patients that if I was to ever sell the practice, or if I was to either like someone was to buy into the practice, like that shows a very good healthy practice, that it is got patients that are not kind of squabbling and not paying their bills for months and months on time. So I think that is like another sort of spin-off bonus about it all. That's Absolutely. It. So until next time, right, Quincy?
Yeah, I mean, we talk a little bit about this in our course, not a ton, but we also do talk about other electronic ways to communicate with patients. If you are still assignment, if you do still take insurance companies, we do talk about the technology to communicate with patients and get those messages out there.
And if you were to join our private membership, so there's a mentorship program that we do along with our on-demand courses. So you can take our on-demand courses that Quincy and I have developed, and just at your own pace, you can just take them. But there is a very few doctors that we take on every 3 months to mentor and meet with regularly, and it's in those types of situations that if you wanted something customized that was really like to help you get through this or kind of mentor your team, then we would be able to do that. So lots of options. Let us know. But in the meantime, I really hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to listen to this podcast. And again, hopefully I inspired you in some way. If you feel that this was helpful, or you have any colleagues that you think would really maybe enjoy some of the content like this, we're going to be here every week. And I would so appreciate it if you would subscribe to my channel and also share this little discovery of this new podcast with your friends and colleagues. If you do want to reach me, you can certainly find me through my social media channels, Dr. Peggy Bound or Peggy Bound Dentistry, or you can reach me on my email, peggy@smilesbybound.com.